Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Lost Beat 6 show, Making the Scene edition. My name is Steven. I'm your host for this show. Welcome. We're happy to have you here, actually. Really are. I mean that. And this week, we're going to be talking with Mr. Branden Stroup. He's a bassist. He's an engineer. He's a really nice guy. And we had a really good time talking to him. A lot of nice people in this crew. It's always kind of the perk of this picking and choosing a collective that happens to be super, super nice, is you get to talk to nice people. Not too much on the home front here at Lost Beat 6. We got a couple tunes from the Psychedelic Space Beef Band that are launching, and we're just going to get these singles out. We're nearing a date for Beefin' Around the World, the highly anticipated album of the Psychedelic Space Beef Band, but we'll launch that and drop that news on you when we actually have news to give you. We're getting the artwork done, all that fun stuff. Things are being written by me. No, I'm just kidding. Things are being worked on, and as soon as we have the launch date for that, we'll let you know. But yeah, if you want to pre-save any of those things, just go to lostbeat6.com. And if you want to see any of our previous shows, and if this is your first time listening to this podcast and you're like, who the hell are PLaNETS? This is about our 12th. It's about our 10th person we've talked to about PLaNETS, or maybe 9th, I'm sorry. This is like our 9th person we've talked to about the PLaNETS crew. We are really deep diving this. We're getting in the deep and saucy bits here, and we're going to figure out something to do once things seem to be clearing up here in California. So by summertime, we might have a cool thing to do to cap this off, just sort of with everybody involved. So I'm really happy about that. We'll more details to come when they develop, I suppose. Anyway, we talked with Branden Stroup. He was with the L.A. Riverbend, the folk rock indie group that I don't think they are together anymore, but they did launch an album. They released an album last year, posthumously, I believe. And if that's not correct, please check me and comment on this show saying that I need to get my act together. And I'll be happy that you reviewed it at all. So anyway, Branden's is a wonderful bass player. He's toured with the Zmed brothers, Everly Brother Experience is kind of how I got to know him, and is an engineer at the Soundspace Studios, which we got to talk about a little bit. He's working on a new project, which we kind of dabble into. And if you hear little chirps and stuff, that's his son Emerson. So proud parent, and congratulations on that. And anyway, we talked everything from New York to the Moody Blues, and it was a really good time talking to him. And that's all I'll preview, and you can check out the rest in like seconds. All right, Branden, welcome to Lost Beat 6 show, Making the Scene. Thank you for making the scene.
Thanks for having me.
Have you been?
I've been well. I've been doing okay here in this quarantine times.
Nice. Sorry. there we go.
I recently had a baby, so he's in the.
Awesome.
You might hear him in the background. He's peacefully playing right now, but who knows where he might be in 5-10 minutes.
What's his name?
Emerson.
Nice. It's a great name.
I like it. I'm a big fan of Ralph Waldo Emerson and the Naturalists.
Nice.
But that's only partly why we use that name. But yeah, it's a nice, strong, older type of name,
Yeah, I can dig it. How's I didn't ask you when we were talking shop earlier, but how is the studio?
The studio's doing good. Things are going good there. Things have been pretty slow with the pandemic. I've been getting into tech work in the meantime, which has been pretty enjoyable. Just having a lot of different projects, from electrical stuff to I don't know, rebuilding pump organs and pianos and like more tactile stuff like that too. But yeah, we have like a couple tape machines in there. Some are good and working, and then there's like one that is a project. I got to figure out what's happening with it, which is it's a lot of work because I can't find like service manual on this thing from like 1969.
Yeah.
Got to get in there and just trace the signal all throughout it, but it's fun. I've been thinking about even maybe going back to school and learning some electrical engineering skills to hone in on that.
That sounds great.
That's what I've been up to.
Nice. So you might know why you're here.
Yes.
And why I called you, and why I've called everybody. I met you around 2016 for the Everly Brothers Experience Bird Dogs Whitefire gig with the Zmed brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember a few things. One, that you kind of gave me the download on kombucha at Whole Foods, and
yes.
And then I didn't realize that you and Bert and Zach and Dylan were all part of this little cabal called, I didn't know it was called PLaNETS at the time, but it kind of was like in the distance. But I heard about this Christmas special that you guys were putting on in 2016.
Yes, and the annual Christmas specials.
Yeah, and holy hell, was that an eye-opening experience.
You went to that show?
I did.
Okay.
And I was like, this is awesome. This is everything that I wanted to try to do with my friends in Ventura, but failing miserably. Not to put my friends down, but it was so cool how everybody, and I think I've mentioned this to a couple people now, how everybody was able to share instruments, but the idea of like organizing something like that, and take the time out of everybody else's, like, not only their day jobs but their other musical projects that they were mostly engaged in,
right? Yeah.
And then just say we're all going to play Christmas tunes or Pink Floyd tunes or Nirvana night or whatever it was going to be. And so I was just extremely impressed, and that kind of was the small little opening. And then as the years have passed onward, and then I've noticed everybody just seems to be so, and even online, just so engaged with each other's stuff. It's been a fascinating thing for me to sort of witness from a more outside perspective. So I guess I'll just kick it off right away. How did you find yourself in the PLaNETS orbit?
Well, I have a similar story probably to many others. Zach Zmed introduced me. Emily from LA River Bend, Emily Elkin, and I went to a Janks show. Both of us have heard of this band, the Janks, like separately, independently, and we both wanted to check them out. So we're like, oh, we got to go to the show. We met them that night, and they were fantastic. Janks always rocked the stage. They were so talented, and Zach mentioned that he's playing bass newly in this band PLaNETS, and they were playing a show down at Casey's. So we're like, hey, we'll go check that out. And it was insane. It was just so different from any other concert. It's just so multifaceted, with the puppeteering, and the dancing, and the makeup, and the costumes, and the robot, and the confetti, and it was just, it's like a whole world that they create that you go into when you go into that back room at Casey's, or whether it's the Satellite, or the Residency, or the Troubadour show, or they have like an aesthetic and a world that you go into, and yeah, so it was through Zach, who was playing bass with them. They didn't have a bassist for a long while. And Zach was like, oh, I really like what you guys are doing. I'll step in. And he fit right in there. He's a guitarist, but man, he could play the bass too. So that was my introduction. Zachary Zmed.
I'm starting to get maybe like another one of those like theories, like a Kevin Bacon style 6 degrees kind of concept.
Okay.
There's a 6 degrees to Zmed, like somewhere, like you name it, you can get to those guys like within 6 people.
Oh yeah.
Did you frequent the Alhambra house often, or was that how did
did.
you find?
Yes. Yeah. We were all. I mean, we would do Thanksgivings together. We would do. I don't know. They had parties there all the time. We were all in the same group. I was playing in a band, LA River Band, which was me, Nate Weiner, Jacob Seldes, and Emily Elkin. And we would play a lot of shows with the PLaNETS. We played Casey's a number of times down there. And the PLaNETS really brought like a great element of our music out, because we were like folk music to it, to a large degree. Emily was on cello, so we're featuring strings and 3-part harmonies and that sort of thing. But when we played down at Casey's, or if we played shows at the PLaNETS, it felt a little bit more punk rock, which I think was really good for our vibe, It really brought, like, those are some of the best shows we ever played because of the energy in the room, feeding off of, our friends. And we're like, the whole group is like a family. We support one another, and we're there for one another, and we believe in one another. And Stilly is, he's just so inviting to allow any of us to express our creative talents, and just our like ambitions and that. So that's kind of like that inviting nature has allowed like all of us into that world. And even some people, like you think of like Beers for Fears with Dubs, he was always a great singer, and like we'd be doing karaoke night at PLaNETS and he'd be killing it. But I don't think he imagined at some point that he would actually be fronting a band that's like, playing Echo Park Rising and like doing really well. But like, Stilly helped facilitate that in Dubs. Dubs had that within him, and now that has come into fruition, that it exists, Dubs band, and he's, and it is such a representation of Dubs as a person and his band, and it's an incredible thing. And that's just one element of what Stilly allowed. They had a residency down at Casey's, so they would have bands play down there all the time, and it might be a new up and coming band, like, come on out, just try stuff out,
Yeah.
And then, they get feedback from the crowd, and next thing you know, we're all doing shows together.
That's awesome. I've started to realize there's sort of a trend and pattern. Most people who are in this sort of community, there's a handful of people, maybe like a select few that are actually local, like from Los Angeles initially. So are you from the Southern California area, or where?
I'm not. I'm from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania originally.
Okay.
And then I moved from Pittsburgh to New York. I went to school at NYU in Manhattan for 4 years, and then I moved out to LA at the end of 2008.
Okay, so you were hanging out in the Village then.
I was in the Village from 2004 to 2008.
That's cool.
Loved it there.
The few times I get to go to New York, I always make a point of going to Greenwich Village and then walking around and then realizing that there's not much I can do that's outside, and I have to go. And I'll just go to the park and then walk back to wherever I was going, and then go to.
I do the same. I when I'm in New York, I make a point to take the subway down there and walk through Washington Square Park, and maybe get falafel at Mamoon's on McDougal.
Yeah.
Lived there for 4 years, right in the thick of it. It was really, really a cool place to be.
That's nice.
Not as cool as it probably was in 1967, but
right.
But some of those vibes were still there.
I mean, the Cafe Wah is technically still. I still have coasters. When I went there last time, and I grabbed some coasters. I still have them as a souvenir.
That's there. Bitter End is there. There's a lot of cool spots still there. There's the Yippie Cafe. You know about the Yippies?
Yes, yeah.
The Youth
Hoffman
International Party. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
They have a cafe on Bleecker. I don't know if it's still there, but it was there when I was in school. I'd pop in there and get a vegan pastry all the time. We'd go and watch kind of social justice videos and documentaries with that crew. Learn about some of the stuff that they were up to back in the heyday.
Nice. Did you ever do any work in Electric Lady?
No, I dropped some tapes off there.
Okay.
Because I was interning at Trout Recording in Park Slope, so there was some go between there and the Lodge and different studios and in Manhattan as well.
Yeah.
But no,
a lot of those places are disappearing too. I think Chungking is now defunct. I think
it's so tough to
it's
make
rough.
money in that business.
Yeah.
Having a studio is so expensive.
Yeah.
Our studio does. We have a buy-sell trade business as well. So we buy in guitars and anything that's in our studio that makes up our studio, whether it's a recording console, just individual preamps, compressors, equalizer, reverbs, all that stuff we're liable to sell at any moment. Microphones,
Oh, interesting.
The guitars, the amplifiers. So there's a constant flow of what's coming in and what's going out, and it's constantly making money that way.
That's good.
Which allows us to have the flexibility to do projects with points, and getting points on projects as opposed to getting paid outright.
Okay.
But then it also allows us to, to acquire more gear. And
does that kind of leave sort of your is there a constant, you said everything's up for sale, or everything's
almost, yeah.
Okay. Does that leave that's kind of cool in a way where it's you never know, you might have something new to work with at any given moment. Does that help or hurt the idea that people are going there for a specific piece of gear? I know that's always been a selling point.
Well, we have a couple of staples that will not leave, and we always make sure to have a good tape machine, to have that as an option. But our main centerpiece is this. You were talking about Universal Audio when we were chatting earlier. Our main centerpiece is this Universal Audio made console before Universal Audio exists as a name. They're SE Corp. Oh, there he is.
There we go.
Our main recording console is Bill Putnam made, which is Bill Putnam is basically the head of Universal Audio as it starts, and it was a custom made console because all consoles prior to 69 or so were
right. When
you made a console, it was custom made, so it has Langevin parts and Universal Audio preamps and equalizers and it's fully tube. And it was made for Caesar's Palace in 1965 when Caesar's Palace opened, and was used there for 20 years till the 80s. And there's a strip of tape on the underside, console tape, that reads Everly Brothers. There's another one that's Ike and Tina Turner. I guess the engineer wanted to keep those ones, so it's pretty cool.
Those are that's.
I've been telling Zach and Dylan and Burley, I've been saying you guys have to record through this console because literally the Everly Brothers music had gone through it at some point live.
Right. Yeah. The project I did with them ended up using all the UA Unison versions of those 610 preamps. So not nearly as cool for sure, but that's a trip.
Yeah.
So Yeah,
This console is, though, it's not 610 preamps. They're 1008 preamps, which is the preamp after the 610.
Okay.
So it's not rotary knobs. It's like
it's actual faders. Okay.
Yeah, they're pretty rad. We'll have to talk more about it.
I'll definitely one of these days I'll have to stop by and do a little studio tour.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So let's talk a little about I've seen LA River Bend. It's Bend, right? Not Band.
Yeah, like
okay.
I
keep messing that up.
River bends, Pocahontas style.
Nice. So I've seen you guys a few times. I think once at the Satellite. I actually did sound for you at the Cinema Bar, which is
yes, you did.
Which is a cool experience for me to watch. The Cinema Bar for me has always been sort of I want to say a bittersweet experience, but more of it's a really cool vibe, but I just never liked working there. It's like a sound man's nightmare as far as like,
yes,
just what I had to do to make.
I was not jealous of you doing sound at the Cinema Bar. It's like such a tiny place that's like, it'd be like you could almost get away with maybe not having a sound system, but not really.
It's got the Nashville vibe of just how those honky tonks have they have the console just strapped to the wall and you just plug in where you need to go. It's just vocal mics only because no one needs to hear tom mics and guitar amps that are people are bringing in like Fender Twins and AC30s and I'm like, dude. Why? But Ted Siegel of will constantly remind me, and if he hears this, he'll remind me again that a lot of my connections and people that I work with today and are friends with today in the music biz are usually because they crossed the threshold of the Cinema Bar. So it's even the Zmed's included actually.
Yep.
So
there was some magic going on in that place too.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. It was definitely a cool place to play for sure. There's some if you hit the right night and the right people were there and the right songs were being played and all that sort of stuff. There's some cool stuff to it. So, and I'm not sure if I ever recorded your show. I have to recall. I did a lot of to keep myself sort of fresh on the mixing chops.
Yeah.
I recorded a lot of shows in multi-track.
If you find out at some point that you did, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'll let you know because I think I had an archive for things like the Deltas. I had a lot of. There's like you could create a live album off that stuff if they wanted to.
You should.
Yeah, and
I mean, there were some of those performances. I remember seeing them. Those totally album worthy. I mean, beyond.
Yeah. And there's a point where I stopped. I think around the last couple of years, maybe the year or so that we stopped doing that, they did it before they left. I think I just stopped caring. I just wanted to get the job done and get out, because it was putting
a lot to work through that stuff.
Yeah. For me to make the experience worth it, at one point I basically mic'd everything and then realized that's a lot of work for this kind of gig that's I'm getting gas money for. So I had to go, okay, well, the recordings were, hit or miss sometimes, and then, it is what it is. But, and of course that QSC Touch Mix was not like the best digital converter ever. So there's like a limit of conversion quality that is audible to me. And if it's audible to me, it's usually, I'm not one of those like audiophile hyper listen between this, this interface and the conversion, the converters on this sound so pristine or whatever. It's usually, I'm a little more a layman to that.
Utilitarian,
exactly. There's there's a billion different ways to make a good record.
That is very true.
So but those converters, there's always like a limit to where I was pushing. Maybe if I took it through something else, it would sound awesome. But anyway, the tangent aside, I was always impressed by the LA River Bend, and your songs were always really cool, really catchy tunes. And then I got a chance while you were taking care of Emerson, that I was rewatching some of the videos and I was watching Summer Wind, and I realized that everybody's in that video.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the premise of that music video, was like a house party, summer vibes, LA. And that was the crew that would have been there if it wasn't a staged,
True.
video shoot. But yeah, so we just wanted it to feel like how it is when we hang out in the summer.
How did you guys all form? How did everybody meet? How did it all come about?
Well, I met Nate while I was in college. My roommate and bandmate at the time, Dylan Byrne, went to school with Nate, and they were both musicians down in the Redondo area, actually Palos Verdes area, like down in that area. And so they were both from there, and Nate came out to New York a couple of times while I was in school, and we would book a show while he's in town, so we could play a show together in New York. I always loved his music. He just played solo there, but he had a trio back here in LA. I moved out here after school, and we were doing a lot more shows together, our two bands. And then Nate made a solo record, and he did it at a studio here in town, and the engineer mid-mixing the album dropped the ball and, like, I don't know, up and left, disappeared.
Oh, man.
Took the deposit, that sort of thing. And Nate was like, I got to finish this record. And I was like, well, I engineer. And we were hanging out a good amount around that time. And I was like, I'd be glad to, I'd be honored to work on it. So I ended up mixing that for him. And in the course of that, I learned the music very well. And he needed me he asked about having me play bass. And at first I was like, cause I was playing in that other band, I was like, I don't think I could do two bands. But then as it went on, I was like, you know what? Like, this sounds fun. And Nate's like serious about pursuing music. He's putting a record out. He's got his shit together. And the music's fun. And we were good friends. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And so we found a drummer and played as a trio like that for a little while. And then Nate wanted to tour his album, and he was just going to do it solo. And I was like, well, I'm down to go on a road trip, and I'll play bass and sing some harmonies and stuff. And he was like, okay, cool. And then we had recently met Emily Elkin. I met her through my old bandmate Dylan again. We did some show. I forget what those shows were called, but it was some like Hollywood show.
One of those networking shows, or is it one of the I
mean, it wasn't for networking, but we ended up networking there. It was like kind of an outdoor space. It's on Vine. Like you go upstairs, and then it's like kind of indoor outdoor. I forget what it was called, but
okay. Sorry.
Anyways, we met her there, and we were like, yeah, you sound really good on cello. Like, do you want to, play a show with us sometime? And then I don't know how it happened, but then Emily was like jamming with Nate and I one night, and it was sounding really cool. And she's like, I want to go on a road trip and play music too. So Nate's album was like full instrumentation, drums, multiple guitars, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, organs, like full on production. And we were narrowing these songs down to bass, cello, and guitar. And then I was playing also like mandolin sometimes and banjo. I was kind of doing multiple instruments. But we had the cello, the acoustic guitar and then multiple instruments, and then we would do 3-part harmonies. And we went and toured Nate's music doing that, and that created a sound and a vibe that we stuck with for the next, I don't know, 5-6 years or however long we were together, maybe longer. So that's how it happened.
Nice.
Nate wanted to tour his album, and we used what we had on hand, which was the instruments that the three of us played, did renditions of those songs, and created a sound. And then we did 2 EPs in our day.
I noticed one was just released last year. Was that?
Yes, we started recording it, and then we decided to break up, but we continued. We still wanted to follow through with finishing it up.
Okay, so it currently is. The band is defunct, but it's not like it's. You guys are all still friends, right?
Yeah, we're all still super close friends.
That makes me feel better.
And Nate and Jacob still make music as Good Run band.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was actually kind of curious what if that was like the next.
So yeah, they played some shows together before quarantine, and now they've just been writing through the pandemic.
Yeah.
So they'll have some new material out. And
then Emily's hanging out with Weezer.
Recording or what? But yeah, Emily's been playing cello. She went on tour with Angel Olsen. She was in the Weezer music video recently.
Yeah, I'll be talking to her next week. So
oh, cool. Well, she'll fill you in.
It'll be fun.
That.
Yeah, it's to preview the next couple episodes.
Yeah. And she's playing with her husband Kenny. They have a new group, the
cool.
New Hope Hall Children's Choir, which is really fantastic. So definitely check that out. They have some recorded content with video that's just like really cool, really like kind of genre bending and nostalgic and really, really rad.
Nice. And then you mentioned earlier you were actually working. You're kind of. Are you currently working on writing?
Yeah,
a record,
I have material that I've never put my own music out. I've been in bands for, my whole life, but I've always been writing my own music on the side. So I have like a concept album that I'm getting serious about.
I love concept albums. Love them.
Yeah, I'm trying to tie in like why I got into like I love music, but I also have a strong passion in philosophy, and part of why music was a selling point in terms of like going that path for life was the philosophical ideas that can be embedded in music and change people's lives, which is like not all music has that type of content, and I love music for the sake of music too, for the aesthetic of it, even if it's whatever lyrics, nonsense lyrics, love lyrics, whatever. But I truly love a good song with some like deep content, some like meaningful lyrics that either make you think or question things, kind of on like a cinematic scale. Like a movie can have those elements in it and still be a great movie aesthetically, and that's kind of what I'm trying to create with the album. So we'll see.
Nice.
We'll see. I got a couple of songs. Some I have music for and no lyrics. Some I have lyrics for and no music, and some are complete. But I have like the general arc of what it's going to look like outlined. So just got to fill in the gaps and tell the story that I want to tell.
That's great. Is there a specific philosopher or philosophy or class of thing like that you're kind of tapping in from?
Well, I don't want to come across preachy throughout it, so I want to try to ask questions throughout it a little bit more. But I will say that a lot of it is kind of like a closure on old religion and religious thought, theological ideas,
Okay.
kind of paving a way for a new. So there's definitely an element of Nietzsche in there.
I was thinking the same thing, the great abyss sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. But also there's Sartre in there,
Okay.
kind of ideas of morality being in our own hands and ethics and that sort of thing, not being like ethics not being something that you're like obeying, like these rules that are in place, but ethics coming from within. And the idea like when a religious person is asking God what to do in a certain situation, because there's so many specific situations where you have to make a decision that's not just, am I going to kill this person or not? Am I going to cheat on my wife or not? There's like, life is more complex than that. So you have to ask yourself what to do in multiple situations. And some people ask that of God or pray to God for that. And I think that's a way of like, I think that's effective. I think there's truth in like that, but to the extent that you're finding an intuition, really, you're reaching like a state of mind. And like there's these things in religion that I think are like psychologically imperative for us as humans, but and I don't know if you're religious, and I don't want to offend anybody. This isn't supposed to be a religious podcast,
no, you're fine. I mean, to me, you're fine.
But yeah, it's an idea of like rethinking some of these things. I'm not trying to say God is dead, but I'm trying to say God has changed over time. The concept of God, and it needs to continue to change. And what that looks like, we'll find out with my new album.
Nice. That was wonderful. Nicely done. Yeah, looking forward to hearing it for sure when it comes out.
Thanks, dude. I just don't want it to come out like it's hard to approach those ideas without like poetically. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I think in my personal opinion and maybe my taste in music would dictate there's a level of. I remember watching. Especially lyrically, because you can be really on the nose and it can come off bad if it's too like hit you over the head. That's why I kind of like never really was into Rush all that much, because I think that Neil Peart's lyrics were always kind of a little too on the nose. Mm-hmm. Where I could say someone like a Peter Gabriel might be like just well baked in there, Yeah. He I think he would be more of a master of how to write a song about that could be in your feelings, but also on a like In Your Eyes has that religious and romantic element to it, and spiritual and religious spiritual and romantic and sort of. It could be kind of whatever you need it to be, but it does a good job of whatever that thing is. So
there's also the fear of like becoming cheesy, though. Like one of my favorite bands is the Moody Blues, but if I have like one criticism of the Moody Blues is that it can be a little cheesy,
I totally see that. I think
it's deep, but then if it's too, I don't know, like too hippie or too far, it turns into kind of like a play or like a. I don't know.
You're talking about the Graham Edge poems that cap off the first couple albums.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could totally see that. I'm with you there. I think,
but maybe I'll just go down that road.
You see what happens. You just ditch the poems at start and finish it, and
just don't talk. Don't do spoken.
You can
over the music.
Yeah. Yeah. I usually fall off a little bit after the after Search the Lost Chord. I kind of those first two I really like, but I'm a little less interested in the ones that happen after that. As far as the blues, the Moodies are concerned, but
sure,
I really like Lost Chord a lot. in regard to that.
That's a great record. That's probably my favorite.
Yeah, it's a solid one. I like.
Bird is really into the Moody Blues too. When we were on the road, we would blast the Moody Blues a lot.
Nice.
On the road with the Everly Brothers. Him and I, we'd end up bunking a lot or driving in the car a lot together. So that was one thing we could throw on and just.
Well, it's very calming too. It's very, very mellow stuff. Almost, it wasn't Canterbury, but it was very kind of you could see the influence they had on some of the Canterbury scene.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that being very good music to listen to like after like a good old fashioned rock show too.
Yeah.
For all
also
sorts of
great
reasons.
music after a good old fashioned joint. Which may or may not have also occurred. Well, there's definitely psychedelics involved in their music as well.
Totally, yeah. I remember listening at a very early age. My dad would always play. My dad's a big Moody's fan as well. He would play Days to Future Past. Like as a kid, I would be. There was once or twice we'd sleep like downstairs on like the couch futon just to kind of change things up and whatever. My dad had had a stereo system down there, and he actually had the CD. We never had vinyl in the house all that much. He had a turntable at one point, but at that point he was very much into the digital remasterings and stuff for the dynamics and the new frequencies we couldn't hear on the vinyl. But he would play Days of Future Past and kind of have that sort of wonderment of like this little story you're going on and stuff, and like it was kind of cool. Yeah, so that's
like a dreamscape of an album. It's really nice from start to finish. All the symphony behind the rock music and the blending of it and the themes.
Yeah, I love Tuesday Afternoon and Twilight Time and Peak Hour.
Mm-hmm.
A little surf tune in there.
Yeah, it's interesting how different some of the CDs sound compared to the vinyl, which I really found that with some of the Frank Zappa stuff and some of the King Crimson stuff. The Moody Blues I didn't notice as much, but there's certain records where it sounds so different to me on the vinyl than it does on the CD for whatever reason.
The Zappa stuff we have to be careful about because a lot of stuff he did was he would put like I don't know why he did this. Maybe he was just fascinated with 80s sounding drums and synths, but he put like 80s drums in like Cruising with Ruben and the Jets and stuff like that. It was some bizarre choices.
I've like heard records where I'm like, is like the music different in this on this for some reason? Like,
yeah,
and you just wouldn't expect that, you know.
Yeah,
you can't try to expect anything from Frank Zappa, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's one of those where I'm going, okay, he's human. I can. But I'm not necessarily. I just kind of got back into vinyl, but I'm not necessarily one that's into the preaching the sonic qualities of it. I like the psychological commitment to it, and that kind of like you have to play a record, you listen to the whole thing, and you can't just skip and shuffle and.
Yeah, it's a little bit more of a ritualistic listening experience.
For the most part, the collection of it, the King Crimson. You mentioned the King Crimson CDs. I kind of noticed the Steven Wilson remixes have been fantastic. I don't know if you've been, and he's been doing that with a lot of prog stuff too. He did that with the Yes albums. He did that with some of the Jethro Tull albums, and they've been interesting to hear what he's done to kind of there's things in there that he's remixed. And that even like the Beatles stuff, I don't know if you've listened to the new Beatles remaster or remixes that
I think that's what's on Apple Music right now, right?
There's different versions but there's like an anniversary edition you can check out. Like the Sgt. Pepper one is mind blowing just because all the stuff you didn't hear before, and all of a sudden it's like the way that people used to mix stereo and how they didn't quite know how to handle it as far as like subs or bass centric kind of mixing. But at least the Sgt. Pepper one, and I think maybe the Abbey Road one as well was pretty like, wow, this is, everything came out like clear as day, and then like you could hear stuff that they hid in the background that it's still hidden in the background. Yeah. I'm the remastering is different because you're not digging into the original tracks, obviously, because it's mastering, but there's some interesting stuff going on in like the digital the sort of digital remixing of a lot of these classic tracks, and some of them are not necessarily being digitally remastered. Some of them are being remixed through the original discs with a newer perspective. I think at least with the Abbey Road stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah. For the time being, I'd like to switch gears even back to the LA scene. I know. I don't know if you've been following Jolene's new Instagram series about how do we get back, but I've been very interested in what she's been talking about and who she's been talking with, and it's been interesting.
It's been on my radar, but I'm sometimes bad at keeping up with those things. But I definitely need to check it out. It keeps popping up, and I'm like, oh yeah, and then
the thing
a couple
is,
episodes come on, and I'm like, oh, I'm like way behind.
Yeah, the thing with this podcast,
my wife and I will probably take a night and kind of watch catch up on them.
Oh yeah. They're about an hour each. If you're listening to this, do check out her show. But it's a recurring theme between this podcast and her show is basically kind of a reminiscence and then kind of the future of where things are going to go with even like the PLaNETS crew and you guys and everything that's happening. Because I know they're working on stuff that's really interesting and exciting, and also kind of they can afford to do it with the those guys. I don't think they'll ever run out of ideas.
No.
And I know we're seeing a different we're seeing kind of an evolution in the venues that are closing down and some that are holding on for dear life, and other, I don't know, like I can't speak on all of them, but how are you optimistic about sort of the new, what might be happening in the future of the LA scene is such a sort of a fickle beast.
Yeah. Well, I think it's definitely going to be different on the other side. It's not going to just go back to how things were. But I think a lot of stuff's bubbling up, in this moment, and I think a lot of people are. I think it's given people time to kind of reevaluate things. I think a lot of people are going to come back with a vengeance in a sense, come back stronger. And then, some iterations have changed. Bands have formed. Bands have, stopped playing together. I've seen different musicians come together to make new material. And it's a good thing when that happens to a certain extent. It's sad to see bands break up, but it's exciting to see people kind of meld back together that have similar tastes and sensibilities and that sort of thing. I'm thinking of like Ethan and Shane and Bert and Peter coming together. I don't know if you...
Nice.
Did Ethan mention that on his...
No, I don't know. I feel bad now if I...
They did... they've been doing some covers of like Queens of the Stone Age songs, and
okay.
Shane's been recording
I don't think he told me that. Now I'll look like an asshole if it's on the recording and I just didn't listen to it.
Well, sorry to put you on the spot about it. But,
that's okay. No, it's fine.
But that's like... Those are a couple of my favorite musicians in the scene, all of which have ties to PLaNETS and that crew. and to see them come together and form like a new band. And Shane said they're working on some original material. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah.
So things like that, like, people are writing in this time, I think, a lot. So creatively, I don't think people are doing less in that sense. It's just like physically, like playing shows and that sort of thing is becoming more difficult. People are making more music on their computers. Maybe not more, but people are stuck at home. They're making music on their computers, and some element of like recording is still happening. So I think a lot of music is going to be coming out. And in terms of the live music scene, I don't think the demand for it is going to go away, but I think it's going to be sharing the online live stream type of format, kind of splitting with that a little bit more, which also has its perks because you have an audience that's universal.
Are you worried that might have got oversaturated by May, some of the live stream stuff? I know that was a big deal around summertime where we were just not sure and people were freaking out.
What was the question?
Are you, I mean, with the live stream thing, do you think it may have, I'm assuming you didn't think it oversaturated at all? Like with the amount of stuff? Or
like the amount of stuff happening?
Like like when, I know Joe's talked about this, but basically like, when like we got to April and we were like in May, and everybody was like, we kind of knew we were going to be here for a while. Like there was an extreme amount of like live stream feeds or like live streams being streamed, I guess.
Yeah.
and there's to the point where you had people who didn't exactly know what they were doing, like some of the more professional, like some of the more AAA acts and stuff like that, trying to do it, and it was kind of awkward and weird. But it kind of was like a flooded, like by summertime, I think we were like, it felt like a little run its course.
I don't know. I mean, live streams pop up here and there. I love to be able to watch musicians play, live in front of you. For me, it's like maybe a little bit more casual. Like you could be chilling watching, somebody play a set as opposed to like having to go there. But it's not going to replace live music. I mean, live music, when you're there and in the moment, it's nothing can replace that feeling. And I think live music will come back. It's going to take some time to rebuild.
Yeah.
But also at the same time, I'm just saying like that.
It's a new forum.
It's a new format. Yeah. And if some people didn't do it well, like they figure out how to do it decently. And I don't know. I've been liking being able to catch some live shows. I'm sure people in like rural parts of America are happy about the influx of content, being able to see, like I'm a big fan of Mason Jennings. I've been keeping up with his little live stream shows in his like house, and it's been nice because how often do I get to see Mason play live otherwise? Like once every 2 years when he comes to LA, that sort of thing.
That's a good point.
So that element's good, but no, it's not going to replace seeing Mason live at the Troubadour, where you can call out a song and you're all sharing in that physical space. I mean, it's very different, but it also has its advantages.
Right on. Do you have a favorite PLaNETS experience within playing with the tribute runs, or the in any sort of particular like memory you find to most fond, or any
well, I love playing with them. I love doing like the Christmas shows and the different themed shows. Those are fantastic. There was a Christmas show, or maybe two, or a couple, where LA River Band played a set as well, like beforehand, and then we played some songs like during the set, I believe, if I remember correctly. Those are fantastic, but I love the original Dark Woods show and being able to go and enjoy it from the audience and to dance and to get lost in the world that they create. That was a very magical experience that they put on, and I saw many iterations of that show. Saw it at the Troubadour, saw it at Silver Lake Lounge, Casey's, the Satellite, and it always delivered. I'm sure it's been talked about, like what exactly happens in the show.
Yeah.
But all the elements coming together, it's you leave time and space when you enter that venue for the PLaNETS show. As soon as they start, you might as well be in another, dimension, or it's like it's a whole different world that you go into, which is the Dark Woods, which is this aesthetic, this world that they created, and it's part sci-fi, it's part horror. It's super imaginative, and it's kind of a interestingly familiar place for me, because I'm big into like David Lynch and I don't know, a lot of the elements that they're honing in on throughout the show. So for me, it was always this like escape and medicine and release all at the same time. I mean, one of my favorite things in the world was them playing Dance Motherfucker Dance and just completely letting go of all, societal worries, all worries about work, stresses, everything in life disappeared. It was like a meditation of dance, a ritual, an escape, a release, and medicine all at once. Nothing else mattered. Just a fucking Guinness in hand and spilling it all over the dance floor as we all lose our shit. That's what I loved.
That's awesome. I do. Did you ever get a chance to wear the sort of the eyeliner, the blue stripe? I think it's blue. The kind of eyeliner.
Yeah, the
thing.
It's usually black.
And were anybody? was it black?
Yeah.
Okay.
They'd be going around painting anybody who was there who wanted to be, kind of in on the show. Even if you're in the audience, but you're like a regular, they'd come by and paint you before the show happens.
You have notoriously famous eyes.
Oh,
so this was just a question about
thank you.
So I just want to know if that was a moment where that was a highlight of. I'm looking for a picture of that might have possibly have happened, but anyway.
There definitely is a picture with me with the eyeliner on. Yeah, like Melanie would be going around doing it, Natasha. One time Emily did it. There's been multiple times where I've had the eyeliner on.
Awesome. Well, I think we're about to wrap up. I think, is there any you want to go ahead and plug the studio or anything you want to you're working on or anything we should check out?
No, that's okay. I work at a studio, Soundspace downtown, and it's fully analog, but we use the computer as well. It's a nice hybrid of modern and analog aesthetic. But people could hit me up if they're interested in checking it out or wanting to do a project. My Instagram's Branden Stroup. BrandenStroup, and I don't know. I mean, I don't even have a name for my own music project yet. It might be under my name. Who knows? But I guess people could keep an eye out for that. I think that's it. I tried not to plug, but then I ended up plugging.
It happens. Well, thank you so much, and we'll talk to you soon. And congratulations on the little one.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.